Hi, and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman. Today's author conversation is a really fun one from Steamy Lit Con in Anaheim, where I got to chat with Adib Khorram. His new adult book, which is his adult debut, is a romance, and it is called I'll Have What He's Having. There are so many things I could say about this book, so I'll let the conversation speak for itself. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Adib Khorram. Well, welcome to Literary Hype. It's super exciting to talk to you, not just because you have a cool book out, but also we're at Steamy Lit Con.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You just got to be part of the keynote. What was that like, getting to talk about the state of diversity in romance books?
It was pretty incredible, and I was really honored to be up on that panel with a bunch of Titans and then also me. And I think we said some really important things that the audience needed to hear, and also I was proud that we gave action steps for readers, authors, anyone in the audience to take going forward and make a better romance community for everyone.
The romance community has changed so much over the last few years, and now you're getting to put out an adult romance book.
I am indeed. It's full of alcohol and boning, two things I wasn't encouraged to put in my children's books, shall we say.
What's it been like for you switching from writing YA and kids books into the adult space?
It's been incredibly liberating in a way, just to in some ways indulge myself and write about a bunch of things that I really love, like wine and French fries and love. And it's also been challenging at times just to sort of learn a new literary space. The romance genre is so well established and so well beloved. And even though I've been publishing books for 6 years now, like I'm a little lamb just born into the world of romance as an author instead of only a reader. And just like trying to go in with like an open mind and like a spirit of learning has been really good. I think in all our lives we have to go and be new at something sometimes, and being new at romance has been really fun, but also occasionally challenging.
What's been the biggest challenge of making this transition?
I think the biggest challenge is that, what's a nice way to say this? I feel like I've reached the no new friends part of my life in some ways, and I've had to like open myself up to making new friendships again. I feel like a lot of people, I kind of turtled during the pandemic and just like stopped putting myself out there and stopped reaching for others, and like cracking that shell open and reaching for others again has been challenging, but worthwhile to do it because I met some amazing people.
One of those people happens to be a fellow Kansas City girl, Sierra Simone.
Yes.
And I know you got some advice from her on writing this book and writing romance. What was the best piece of advice she gave you?
Wait, how did you know this? Who told you this?
Sierra.
She did? Okay, of course she did.
Also, I was at Romance Genre Con when you were asking questions, and she's like, I should have made him give me easy questions.
I forgot you were at Romance Genre Con. Oh my gosh.
I'm always around.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, when I first told her I wanted to write romance, I was like, hey, can we do a Zoom call? Because she's impossible to actually like get a hold of, like in real life. She's a fancy person with a very busy life. But she was like, yeah, let's talk. And she said that because romance is a genre about pleasure and indulgence, but like literature usually requires conflict of some type to move a story forward, that it was important to always pair challenging the reader with indulging them. That, you know, not to make like a BDSM analogy, but like you have to mix the pain and the pleasure. And I think I, as a writer, tend to lean more toward the pleasure. I'm like, that's great. Okay, well, someone was crying, so now here's 3 chapters about boning and drinking wine. Like, perfect. It's problem solved.
What's the best way that you found to find that balance?
I wish I knew, honestly. As a writer, I tend to be a little chaotic. I tend to write by the seat of my pants and only really know what I'm doing after I've done it. But I think in some ways I just sort of let my own love of love be a guide and ask how would I most enjoy it if the story unfolded as if I was like approaching it from a reader's standpoint.
So your book is called I'll Have What He's Having.
It is. I'll Have What He's Having.
So for anyone who hasn't seen this on social media yet or wandered across it online, tell us a little bit about what this book is about.
So it's about 2 queer men, Farzan Alavi, who's Iranian-American and has sort of bounced from career to career and after getting dumped by yet another boyfriend, decides to drown his sorrows in wine and French fries. And while he's there, he meets David, a black queer sommelier who's studying for his Master Somm certification, and accidentally, through a series of contrivances, mistakes Farzan for a food critic. So they start flirting and accidentally end up in bed together, and the whole thing comes out that he's like, oh, my name's Farzan, I'm not a food critic. And like, well, the sex was great anyway, don't worry about it. And Farzan was like, yeah, the sex was great, should we date? And David's like, I'm too busy, I don't do relationships. So we think they're never going to see each other again. But then Farzan accidentally, on purpose, inherits his parents' Persian restaurant and is like, I don't know how to run a restaurant. Oh, I just met someone through sex who knows about restaurants. Please help me. Surely we won't accidentally fall in love while I help you study for your wine test and you help me run a restaurant. What could go wrong? And of course,
Nothing
could possibly go wrong.
No shenanigans happen there.
No shenanigans, no boning, no wine. Don't worry about it. That's a lie. There's a lot of boning.
There is. It's a very adult book. Not for children.
No,
very
please,
different from Darius
please.
the Great.
Very, very different. Please. I'm never going to say don't give a book to a child, but like have conversations with them about like where their reading level is at and what their understanding of the world is at. Because like, I mean, I was reading romance when I was like 12 or 13, but probably not quite as spicy as my own. Like I wouldn't. At 12, I don't think I would have been able to handle a Sierra Simone book, for example. But as an adult, I'm like, yes, give me that sweet, sweet angst.
The number of children coming into my store looking for adult romance books without their parents is very high right now.
It is, and I think we as a society don't often recognize how much agency young people have, how smart and capable they are, and how curious they are about the world and engaging with it in a safe way. And fiction is overwhelmingly a safe way to engage with new and sometimes challenging ideas.
It's a good way of thinking about it, but I've definitely ruined some children's days.
That's fair. Listen.
If they come in with their parents and the parent asks what the book is about, I'm not going to lie.
No, you can't lie about it.
If the parent finds out later that I lied, they'd come back and kill me.
Oh, it's rough on these streets right now.
It really is. Being a bookseller is so much fun.
Yeah.
No, it really is. Anyways, back to the book.
Yes.
So these two meet in a case of mistaken identity. And so Farzan says that he's using his white man name. So talk a little bit about that concept and why that's necessary.
I and lots of other diasporic people sometimes have names that are challenging or unfamiliar to English-speaking, born in America folks. And so I think almost everyone I know either like has like a white person middle name that they sometimes use, or they like have something that's close enough to their name that they can give when you're in a crowded environment and someone's like, what? Say again? Huh? And you're like, okay. So instead of Adib Khorram, I'll be like, my name is Adib Khorram. Like, that's my white person name because it's very similar sounding, and I can like know that it's me, or usually remember it's me. But sometimes at a restaurant, I give it, and then they'll start calling for Adam, and I'm like, who's Adam? Oh, that's me. And so yes, Farzan uses Frank Allen instead of Farzan Alavi in a crowded environment because he failed to book online ahead of time.
So there are a lot of descriptions about wine in this book and the flavors. And this sommelier, I am not good at these fancy words, I promise.
It's okay. It's French, don't worry about it.
I don't speak French. I barely speak English. So what was the research process like for you to be able to describe these wines in very specific detail?
Oh, it's really embarrassing when people ask me what my research process was, because it was like, I drank a lot of wine. Like, one of the geneses of my romance trilogy was when I jokingly asked my agent if there was a way that I could write my wine off on my taxes. That sounded weird. Write my wine off on my taxes. Yes, I said all those words correctly. And she joked and was like, well, you have to write a book about it. If anyone there is at the IRS, I have not claimed any wine on my taxes. I was told that that's not a thing I'm allowed to do, no matter how much it was for research. But yeah, I've been drinking wine since I was 25. I love basically the same plant, based on the soil it's grown in, the weather, the year that it was grown, the way that it was treated after it was picked and crushed and vinified, can make so many different things. And it's fascinating because from a scientific perspective, like, it's all fermented grape juice. But for hundreds, if not thousands of years, humans have been appreciating the subtle nuances that come from a specific plant in a specific place in a specific time, and then drunk by a specific person. Boy, I'm just waxing poetic about wine. But a large part of my research was just drinking the wine. I have a flavor wheel that I keep close to my writing desk that just lists different flavors and scents that you might encounter. Also, there are many people that study wine, either for academic purposes or for commercial purposes through, wine tasting magazines. Wine producers also often put out their own tasting notes. And so if it was a wine that I had not consumed or had not consumed in a while, I would also go and refer to their tasting notes.
What wine do you recommend people drink while reading this?
Part of it depends on budget. That said, one of my go-to wines that you can find in almost any grocery store and that is a great summer wine and is affordable is Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. I pretty much am always happy when I get a glass of that, and it's like $12 or $13 a bottle, even with wineflation, which is a real problem. If you want to splurge, I don't know, get a bottle of something Saxum makes. They're a producer out of Paso Robles and one of my favorites, and maybe get some James Berry Vineyard.
This is a very foodie book.
Yes. Food is delicious. I love food.
And it makes me so hungry reading this book.
Good.
I'm just like, okay. So what is your favorite food that is mentioned in this book?
Ooh, can I pick two? Is that allowed?
I guess. You can do whatever you want.
While David is flirting/seducing with Farzan, who he thinks is a food critic, he brings Farzan some beef short ribs braised in Amarone della Valpolicella, which is just one of the most heavenly experiences any person can have. And then Farzan, working at a Persian restaurant, makes mention of making a stew called fesenjoon, which is one of my favorite Persian dishes. It's a stew of ground walnuts and chicken and pomegranate molasses, and it's savory and sweet and sour and served over saffron rice, and it's just delicious.
Kansas City might not be the first place people think about for setting a foodie book. So talk a little bit about how the foodie scene in Kansas City helped influence this story.
Well, first of all, people should be giving Kansas City its food flowers. If you've ever had barbecue, you owe it to Kansas City. Okay, fair.
Barbecue, that's the top. There's no other.
Top.
There's no other. Sorry, St. Louis, you're wrong.
I'm sorry. I don't even know. Like, it's Kansas City masterpiece, not St. Louis masterpiece.
Mood.
There is no such thing as St. Louis barbecue. Sorry, I love St. Louis, and give me a toasted ravioli, and I will die a happy man.
Yes, St. Louis can have its T-Ravs, but barbecue,
or some
no
ooey
one
gooey
else.
butter cake. Yeah.
No.
I'll say Memphis barbecue and Kansas City barbecue are like spiritually cousins, and so that's allowed. Everything else, no. Don't give me any weird vinegar. Don't give me any dry. Sorry, I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yums. All barbecue is valid, but some barbecue is better.
You heard that, Julie.
Yes.
Julie Murphy.
Yeah.
And Sierra.
No.
And their barbecue debate in their book.
Right? Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. But no, Julie's one of us now. She's converted.
Yes.
Anyway, the Kansas City food scene has really expanded over the course of my adult life, and the setting of much of I'll Have What He's Having is a wine bar called Aspire, which is literally just my favorite wine bar with the serial numbers filed off. It's called Tannin. It's at 15th and Walnut. It's wonderful. Barry Tunnell, the general manager there, let me interview him about what it's like working in a wine bar. And, growing up, my parents often had Cheers reruns on, and the song is about, isn't that, I don't remember the words, but a place where everybody knows your name. That's the only part of the song I remember.
That's the only part anybody remembers.
Yep. And I was like, that's not a real thing. But Tannin is my place where everybody knows my name. And so, in a lot of ways, it was a love letter to that kind of found family where you get some food and wine.
I was going to ask if there was a specific place, so thanks for touching on that.
You're welcome.
But this does feel like a love letter to Kansas City. You get everything in. You touch on all the big places, Royals and Chiefs. You've got all the little, whatever you want to call them, the little sub spots.
All right, and the KC Current, which is the only National Women's Soccer League stadium in the country. They have their own stadium in Kansas City.
Makes me so happy.
It is, it's such a good stadium too. It's so fun.
And I love their colors.
They are good colors.
But yeah, so talk about writing this book kind of as a love letter to your hometown.
As a romance reader, I saw so many romances set in California or set in New York, and very few set in the Midwest, and that's where I've lived pretty much all my life. And again, not that there aren't any, but they're just not as easy to find. And I was like, well, I will add to the number of books set in Kansas City because it is a good place to live. I know people will joke about living in the state of misery because they'll mispronounce Missouri. But though it's been challenging at times and perhaps has a terrible government and a terrible governor and is third in the nation for book bannings, which is really terrible. It's also been a place that nourished me, that raised me, and where I have family and community. And I just wanted to show that we're not a flyover state.
What's the writing community mean to you in Kansas City? Because there's some really great authors.
There are. As you mentioned, Sierra Simone and Julie Murphy, many other amazing kidlit authors like Natalie Parker and Tessa Gratton and Sarah Henning and Megan Bannon, who's both children and adult, and Amanda Soleil, L.L. McKinney. We have like this amazing... I know I'm forgetting people, and now they're all going to be mad at me.
We love you all.
Thank you. We do love you all. I mean, we're all writers, so we're all busy. But usually we try to get together like once a quarter and complain about publishing, as one does. But also support each other, show up for each other's launches. For me, sometimes that community means like going to a coffee shop together to write. And sometimes it means like running into a roadblock and texting someone being like, how do I get myself out of this situation? And sometimes it means just, sorry, if you're from the IRS, stop watching. Sometimes it means going out to dinner and then complaining about publishing and then calling it a business lunch or a business dinner.
I feel like the finance bros do that, so why not?
Right, and we're not spending nearly as much money as these finance bros are anyway.
Because there's no money in publishing.
Exactly.
So there's a line in this book about the 30s being about endless dishes, cracking knees, and graying hairs. If you were to pick the three things that your 30s were about, what would you pick?
Oh, I mean, that was just my 30s. This decade has promised me lots of things, and it was all a lie. Actually, no. I think my 30s have been about self-confidence, about being a writer, because I became a writer in my 30s after not planning to be one at all, and wine. I have drank a lot of wine in my 30s.
I mean, you go to a bar where everyone knows your name.
Exactly.
You touched on banned books, and that is something that you're very passionate about. The St. Louis Teen Book Festival, that kind of became a conversation. For those who are there, you know.
If you know, you know.
If you're not, whatever.
I think that person did a lot of learning and growing in that moment when I yelled at them, and I think it's fine. I bear no ill will.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, but there is this kind of thought. Mm-hmm. So the argument came up about banned books being a cool thing, and you kind of set them straight. Why do you think it is that people think having your book banned is something kind of edgy and cool?
There are very few books that become banned and become like the focal point of a book banning movement, and those books do get an incredible amount of attention. For instance, Maya Kobabe's Genderqueer and George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue are two of the most banned books in America, and the authors have been interviewed about it. Their books have shot to bestseller status because so many people were checking them out. But for every one or two books that gets a lot of attention for being banned, there might be 800 others that get no attention. Librarians and teachers and booksellers will look at that list of banned books and they'll say, well, these other books are similar. I'm not even going to buy them. I'm not going to risk them getting banned. And so no one hears about those books. They're just softly censored, as we call it. And beyond that, there's a social stigma that can come from having your books challenged or banned. Queer authors are often accused of being groomers by politicians, by community members. People have been harassed in airports or online. It really sucks to have your books banned. And more than that, many authors, especially marginalized authors, are writing about their own experiences. And being told that your own life experience is harmful to children, even if it's something you literally went through as a child, is incredibly damaging.
So readers who want to fight back against the book bans and this movement of kind of censoring what people are reading, what can they do?
The most important thing is vote in every election, not just the November ones that vote for president and House of Representatives. Vote in your local community elections, which sometimes happen several times a year. In Missouri, the first Tuesday in August, we have an election, which is a primary, as well as I think has some constitutional amendments on it. and some school board elections. And those come throughout the year. Vote in your school board elections. Pay attention to who the candidates are, because many school boards are nonpartisan, and you can't just be like, oh, well, the one with the R probably likes book bans. You have to research the candidates, see what they stand for. If you have time and bandwidth, run for school board yourself. Many school board seats get filled on uncontested elections. And if nothing else, show up to the meetings. They're open to the public. They have public comment sections, and simply having bodies in the room that support the freedom to read can make a huge difference in communities where there's a few small agitators that have outsized power because no one is there to stand up to them.
It's so important to think about this in a grand scheme and not just it doesn't affect me. So think about these things, people.
No, it does affect you. It affects all of us when the access of children to information is curtailed. It is damaging to the future of our nation.
So now we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about what's on your social media.
Oh, no.
Because I am nothing if not a social media stalker.
Excellent. I'm so sorry that you had to go through it.
I mean, it was very entertaining because you had a video recently-ish about keeping all the packing materials from when books come.
I
am
it's
the
a problem.
same. I am the same.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me. A lot of people reached out and was like, oh my God, I thought it was just me. Oh my God, I have a room full of them. Some people were like, oh, you mix your bubbles with your papers? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, no, you have to keep everything separate.
I need to show this to my husband to be like, I am not the only weirdo who keeps their book packaging just in case they need to mail a book.
Well, and it also can be expensive to constantly re-buy bubble wrap or boxes. Hoard it all and then use it as you can.
But you also did some packing for this trip. That was very fun.
I did.
How much candy did you bring?
I have two big Costco-sized bags, one of mixed chocolate. Some of it does contain nuts. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I really love Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
I mean, they're delicious.
Thank you. And the other are Nerds, and they're all individually sealed and wrapped, so I think it should be safe. And if I accidentally murder someone with a nut allergy, I apologize. And I always knew I'd be canceled for something.
I mean, Someone Chainani is actively trying to get canceled, so...
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can do it as well as him or as dramatically as him.
No one can.
I've seen his choreographed dance routines, and they are something to behold.
Truly. Soman is a gem. So what do you have coming up next?
Up next, I have a picture book called Tea is Love, about tea and how it's love. Not a romance, but I think really beautiful. Illustrated by Hannah Cha, who recently won a Caldecott honor, so I'm glad we booked her before she won, and her schedule filled. And she's just an incredibly talented illustrator. I don't know for sure when that comes out. Probably 2025, but maybe 2026 because art takes a long time. Beyond that, also I have my second of my romance trio. This one focusing on Farzan's friend Ramin. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it, but I'll maybe tease that it may only partially take place in Kansas City, and part of it may take place abroad. And I have a few other things that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about yet because they haven't been announced.
Darn. Anyway, since this is Literary Hype, what books are you hyped about?
What books am I hyped about? I am hyped about A Jingle Bell Mingle by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. I loved all of their Christmas Notch books, and I'm really excited for the third one. Julian Winters has his adult romance debut coming out called I Think They Love You, coming out in early 2025. I've read it several times already, and it is just absolute romance perfection. I'm really excited for Nisha Sharma's Marriage and Masti, which comes out the same day as I'll Have What He's Having, and we're actually doing an event together. And Nisha and I go way back, and so that should be a lot of fun. And of course, as always happens to anyone, I have also forgotten every book I've ever read.
Every single time.
Yep. What is a book?
I read books?
Yes.
What? Words? In my brain? No. Oh, thank you so much for taking time to talk about I'll Have What He's Having.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a delight.
Love to hear it. Thanks to Adib for hanging out with me at Steamy Lit Con and talking all things I'll have what he's having. If you want to get a hold of this book, which you should, I mean, I even recommended it to Jonathan Bennett, aka Aaron Samuels of Mean Girls, so you should probably pick it up too. The links to get this book are down in the description below, so make sure you check those out, and using those links does help support the channel, and your support is appreciated. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.